I've been thinking quite a bit lately about Jung, that I don't know much about. I must read up on Jung actually. But what little I do know, I don't know, it sounds like we've got, I don't know, there seems to be space for a kind of a Jung revival, it seems to me. I mean, certainly, if I had to choose between Jung and Freud as a kind of personal cosmology, which was relevant to current thinking, I would choose Jung. Partly because of the way that they sort of articulate their ideas graphically, I suppose. Whenever you see a sort of graphic illustrating Freud's ideas, there's always this sense of kind of brightly lit part at the top representing consciousness. The iceberg model, I think it's usually referred to. There's this brightly lit part at the top with this huge subterranean, underground, underwater, repressed section below, the subconscious, the unconscious. Which I'm quite an appeal to intuition, I recognise that. But at the same time, it's a very inward-facing model. The underground, the underwater elements, the bulk of the iceberg, the unconscious in Freud, is inside. It's inside the head, sort of, really. It's this weird sort of steam-powered psyche, which produces this effect. But the effect is to point inwards towards the inside of the head. So we're all sort of pictured as walking around with these great dark chasms at the centre of our being, full of, well, everything really, full of this 90% of our thoughts, which is unconscious, all highly compressed and highly charged and dynamically forceful, and providing drives to this strange steam engine, which, as I say, it's intuitively interesting. But what I like about, well, what I don't like about that, a number of things. Firstly, it's very closed off. The model stops at the end of your skin, effectively. So anything to do with mind is from the skin inwards. So it doesn't make any sense to think about mind extending beyond the skin. If we had to have the idea of mind extending beyond the skin, drawing on something like a Freudian model of mind being an internal process, it would have to be some kind of weird force field or some ectoplasmic beam or ray that came out of the head, which is just nonsense, really. So one of the repercussions of that internalizing model of Freud is that it locks mind away, or it configures mind as something that happens inside the head. Which doesn't really fit with a lot of contemporary models of where mind is. I've mentioned Max Wellman before, but there's plenty of other understandings of mind which configure it as arising from mutual interactions between sense organs, if you like, and the things of the world, either the things of the world or one's own body. So when I look at this tree, the mental experience of the tree, the mind experience of the tree, includes the tree. It's not just some weird thing that's happening in the dark with my unconscious and my conscious mind inside the bony box on top of my shoulders. It's happening out there. So that's one of the effects of Freud, is to lock away mind inside the box, which, as I say, contradicts certain understandings of mind. The other thing about Freud, which I find unhelpful, is the way that it makes everything slightly, all the subconscious stuff, all the unknown stuff, slightly mysterious and dark. It locks it all away in a way that's inaccessible, which is, the inaccessibility is fine, but it also gives it this character of the monstrous and the frightening. And I'm reminded here of the science fiction film Forbidden Planet, in which the monster is the monster from the id, in which the monster that kills these various astronauts on this planet emerges from the dark subconscious of a scientist on this planet. So that's, again, that's something of Freud that I find unhelpful. To contrast that with Jung, who, as I say, I don't know that much about, but I find more helpful, is that to the extent that he has a picture of the mind, it's not enclosed. It's one in which mind, yes, is certainly centered on the individual, or all individual minds are centered on individuals. We all experience ourselves, but it kind of configures a set of concentric rings, concentric understandings of mind, with the innermost ones being the ones that are least shared, and the outermost ones being the ones that are the most shared. In the way, pretty much the way our bodies work. And this is my particular interest in this, of course. Come on, pups, going to go this way. Pups coming. So Jung's pictures tend to look like mandalas. I know he was quite interested in mandalas, with the central point in Jung being, as I understand it, a kind of empty void point. So the center of the self in Jung is contentless. It's a kind of location in cognitive space, conceptual cognitive space. And then the series of concentric areas, circles around that, are things like individual consciousness. And then that range of other sort of archetypal forms, which I'm less happy with, things like the shadow and the animus and the anima or whatever, that kind of thing. Eventually leading out to the collective unconscious, which certainly in some readings of Jung that I've come across is simply the world. It's the world out there, and it's not dark, and it's not hidden in the way that repressed desires are hidden. For example, in Freud, the reasons why something might be hidden in the Jungian unconscious are for the same reasons they might be hidden in the shared space of interpersonal experience. They might be occluded, they might be too distant, they might be too small, they might be out of our conceptual grasp, that kind of thing. So I think that model of Jung's, which is this one in which there is no clear boundary between one's individual consciousness and the consciousness of the world, if you like, the anima mundi, is more interesting and has more relevance to some of the ideas that I'm kicking around. And I think there's a way of building those into the ideas of contemporary cognitive science and contemporary cognitive linguistics, particularly.